All right, today we're going to be talking about the 12th house, giving you the full meaning explained. First, we go through the significations, essentially just what does the 12th house mean? What does it represent in your life? Because each house is a different area of your life, and the 12th house is no different. Then we go to the planets, not all of the planets, but the most auspicious or beneficial planet to have in the 12th house, the most difficult and challenging planet to have in the 12th house, and why, and also the planet that is most aligned when it comes to its inherent significations, most aligned with the 12th house significations or aspects, right? Then we go to the 12th lord, meaning the ruler or the lord of the sign holding the 12th house cusp, or the 12th sign in your house if you're doing whole sign. What does it mean when you take that 12th lord and you put it in different houses? We're not going to go through every single house. I'm not doing that this series. That'll be a future series where we do all the lords and all the different houses to give you a really comprehensive understanding of what it looks like to have different lords in different places, or I guess all the lords in all the places. But just giving you an idea of what it looks like when you take a lord and you put it into another house. How does it operate in the chart? And then finally, we're going to do all the signs, all 12 signs in the 12th house, holding the 12th cusp, to essentially see or show you how each sign will color thematically, energetically, color the 12th house, because the houses are like an actual house, the foundation, the structure, and each sign is like a theme, a vibe. It is the interior design, the energy that colors and flavors each house. Make sense? Cool. So we go to the significations. What does the 12th house mean? What does it represent in your life? Well, the main theme, or I guess signification that most people understand or know, is losses, expenses, and let's say endings, completions, right? It's the 12th sign. We went through in this series, we went through all 11 houses, yeah. And now we're in the 12th, which is the last house before you go to the first house. You start the cycle all over again. It's the end of the circle. So it's completions, it's endings. And to step forward and go to a new cycle, what do you have to do? You have to let go. You have to surrender. You have to die in a way. And the 12th house also can signify hidden things like the subconscious mind. It can also signify astral states or higher states of existence, the astral realm or the spirit realm, or higher dimensions, higher densities of existence, depending on your perspective. Everyone's different. Heaven or hell, depending on how good or bad you've been in this, or positive or negative you've been in this incarnation, but you get the point. It also represents ashrams and churches and spiritual places of existence. It represents, I already said, the subconscious mind, but it also can represent contemplation. So the actions of looking inside of oneself and operating within that internal space, and the ability to maneuver that inner space consciously and coherently. It also can represent foreign lands or faraway places, distant places. It can represent hidden bed pleasures. So, essentially just saying pillow talk, or when you're, isolated with a person you care about, but also can be individual isolation. Also can mean that. And it can also involve, like I said, foreign places, but mysticism or the more transcendent aspects of spirituality. Ninth house is more religion, which is the structured form of spirituality, the structured, organized, even sometimes hierarchical formation of spirituality or the transcendent or higher things. Or 12th house is kind of like the full dissolution of consciousness, the full surrender of the individualized ego that we are presenting to the world. It is the dissolution, dissolving. It can lead to confusion. It can lead to losses, and it can be painful, because letting go of things, letting go of the ego, letting go of this tangible material existence can be difficult, because we are so attached, based off our survival, to the material realm and the things that our ego has identified with. And it can also signify spirit as well. But again, mostly it's losses, expenses, and transcendent states, and the transition from one phase, one karmic cycle, to the next. You start back at one again, because you go in a circle. And then, and when it comes to body parts, represents the feet. like Pisces. 12th sign, 12th house represents the feet. And when it comes to the Varga chart, it also aligns with, almost forgot that, because we didn't do one for 11th, for the 11th house. The D12, the Dwada Samsha, which is essentially the Varga chart, which is the divisional chart in Vedic astrology, a chart within a chart, or a chart within a house, meaning you turn one house into an entirely new chart. The birth chart, the natal chart, the Rashi chart, saying the same thing in 3 ways. That's the chart for the first house. So that's why the first house is most important. And the Dwada Samsha, the 12th house is the most important. And it is the Varga chart that represents your ancestors. So 12th house can also represent your ancestors or your parents, but parents as in like your lineage. Parents as, let's say, palpable, experiential beings in this incarnation is the 9th house, the father, the 10th house, the 4th house, the mother, but in an ancestral form, in a lineage form, like their generational karma, trauma, whatever it may be, gifts, because it's not always negative. That is the 12th house. And so you look at the Dwada Samsha to really understand what you have received, good and bad, positive or negative, supportive or destructive, from your lineage, from your ancestors. So 12th house can represent that. Past life, ancestors. It is, along with the 5th house, 12th house, look at that area of the chart to kind of get a better idea of what your past lives are like, because the reason why we incarnate to the family and we have the generational karma, the ancestral karma we do have, is because that karma resonates, aligns perfectly with our past life karma and our past life decisions and actions and incarnations. That's why you were born into the family you're born to, is because they aligned with you energetically based off of your past lives. Fun fact, if you weren't aware. Planets, almost skipped ahead. Planets, so the planets specifically, that is the producer, the significator, the most aligned with the 12th house when it comes to their significations, is Saturn, because Saturn represents loss. It represents surrender, completions. It is the last visible planet before the outer planets, before you get to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Because the first 7 planets, including the sun and moon, are about that manifest. It's your experiential nexus. The outer planets like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto represent more of the collective. They're more generational planets because they move so slowly. Whenever they're in a sign, it takes 10 or I guess 7 to 30 years, depending on the planet, to move through a sign. It's going to affect an generation not equally, but thematically in the same way. It's just going to manifest in different ways because it's going to be in different houses depending on your ascendant, depending on your rising sign. But Saturn is the last manifest planet. It is the completion planet before you start back at the first planet, which is the sun. And it involves, like I said, losses, expenses, in a way, letting go of the ego, completions, and moving on to the next phase of life. And that can be difficult. So you have a difficult Saturn. It can be hard to let go. It can be hard to move on. 12th house is also vacations and relaxations, and it can be signification for hotels as well. So Saturn is about, believe it or not, rejuvenation, taking time to oneself, relaxing, letting go of the toils, even ignoring. Saturn's all about, when it comes to dealing with problems, Saturn, the best tool that Saturn uses is ignoring it, letting it go, not paying attention to it, aligning with or focusing on things that are actually desired, and all that other shit, just let it exist out there, but I'm not paying attention to it. That's a healthy Saturn. If you have problems through Saturn, and have problems with time, letting go, surrender, things like that. Then we have the most auspicious would be Venus. Venus is the most auspicious. I mean, it's exalted in the 12th sign Pisces, so there's a similar alignment there. Somebody with Venus is able to make the proper decisions to live a more comfortable life, again, depending on the dignity, depending on the aspects, the influences. This matters. However, in a vacuum, we're just focusing on Venus in the 12th house. It doesn't have the most Igbala. And to be honest, houses in the 12th or planets in the 12th house, you'd rather not have them there. But if you were to have a planet there, Venus is the best because it allows somebody to make intelligent, practical decisions around expenses, around their losses, able to relax properly, rejuvenate properly, self-care properly, taking care of the material resources properly, being able to introspect in a healthy way, because the 12th house is representative of contemplation, and that contemplation leading to actual external fulfillment, because that is what Venus represents. And it also can make somebody sensual and enjoy bed pleasures, because that is what the 12th house represents. Venus is sensual, it's romantic, it's a planet of love, conditional love though, not universal, and things of that nature. And the most difficult planet would be Venus's enemy, the sun. Why the sun? And because when you have the sun in the 12th house or conjunct the 12th cusp, you have somebody who will have, let's say, lofty standards, because the 12th house represents higher states, transcendent states, spiritual states. And when you have your core identity, your causal body rooted, your archetypal identity rooted in the 12th house, you can have high expectations of yourself or other people. It can be somebody who has a lot of self-doubt or has problems, let's say, being seen or presenting themselves, because the 12th house is a hidden house. It's a moksha house, and it is of the subconscious mind. And so people who have their sun there, their core identity in the 12th house, might feel more isolated, might be very introverted to the point that it can become unhealthy. It's almost pathological or compulsory. Somebody who, like I said, has lofty expectations, and usually they won't be overt about it. It's something you have to pick up. It's very subtle, because the 12th house is subtle and it's hidden. So it's not going to be an overt, like pompous, overly judgmental expression when you have the sun there. And again, too, this also depends on dignity and aspects. It's not just purely 12th house in this, or sun in the 12th house is automatically going to exhibit these behaviors, but obviously the more difficult the dignity, the more difficult the aspects, its placement, dignity in the Navamsha, the sun, the D9 divisional chart, these will mediate and affect how it manifests, and also free will, because you also have free will. It's not only deterministic. Astrology is just probabilities. And so you have a higher propensity towards judgment of yourself or judgment of other people, of having super high expectations for yourself and therefore other people, because whatever you have for yourself, you do have for other people. People who have a lot of self-doubt will also doubt other people. People who doubt other people will have a lot of self-doubt. So, intense critics externally will be self-critical of the self, and vice versa. It's the same mechanism manifesting internally and externally. So all that to say, sun in the 12th house can be difficult. I'm not saying it's going to destroy your chart, but it can make it more difficult to be seen, to put yourself out there, and to accept yourself and the way in the world and people as they are. 12th Lord, we start with Aries. When we go through the signs, Mars, don't worry about what Mars means in this instance, as you've known in that series, but put it in different areas of the chart to see how it be manifesting. So we can put it, let's say, in the 7th house. And so the 12th house is difficult. If the 12th Lord is good dignity, the 12th house is in good shape, can make it a lot easier. But say you take the 12th Lord, and you, which is the director of the house, right? The house itself is the setting, the area, the structure, the place. Aries is the theme, the vibe, right? Like I said before, it is the interior design. It flavors, it colors that house. And then you take the Lord, which is the director, which holds the significations of the 12th house and uses those significations to serve or support or manifest the things in the 7th house. And so you take the 7th Lord, you put it in the 12th, you take the 12th Lord and you put it in the 7th. You have somebody whose losses and expenses may support their partnerships, their relationships, their trade. Their travel to foreign lands might support their relationships, their trade. So they have a foreign partner, or they meet a partner in a foreign land, in a foreign place, or when they're doing business trades or exchanging ideas with other people, it's usually foreign cultures or in foreign places or remote places, because 12th house is also remote, isolated places. It's isolation yourself and isolated places as well. These are 12th house places like the ashram, hospitals, hotels, vacation spots, foreign places, isolated places are areas where you might manifest a relationship or partnerships. And partnerships, not just romantic, not just sexual, but it is sexual too, but also like close friends who you feel like it's like your other half, or business partners, trade partners that you guys both equally support each other. You take the 12th Lord, you put it in the second, somebody who may have problems with spending, the expenses, the losses in life will affect finances. So meaning that there's a lot of losses, expenses within the domain of finances, money, wealth, responsibility. Also might have responsibility or might find money, might accumulate wealth in foreign places, in foreign lands, through ashrams, through spiritual practices and domains, because 12th house is spiritual house. And so through one's spiritual, contemplations, understandings, connection to higher states, being able to surrender or let go will lead to wealth, will lead to responsibility, but in a healthy way, will lead to the accumulation of resources and resourcefulness, the ability to be more resourceful. Let's say that you have 12th Lord in the 6th in the opposite sign. Somebody who, let's say, finds it difficult to go on vacation, or will work on vacation, or will work and be an employee at a hotel, a vacation spot in foreign lands, isolated places, work in hospitals, work in mental facilities or facilities in general, work in prisons. 12th house also represents prisons. So all of those things I just said can also apply to prisons. But again, it's those significations of the 12th house are serving the house that the Lord goes into. Okay? Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, in my opinion. So now we do the signs. We got Aries, big, bad Aries, holding the 12th cusp or the 12th sign. What does that mean? What does that represent? How does it flavor? How does it color the 12th house, that area of your life, of the person's life that you're looking at? Well, Aries, when it comes to the approach of this individual, this would be a Taurus rising, when it comes to dealing and maneuvering losses, expenses, and higher transcendent states of consciousness, or even, transcendent, but also unconscious, because the 12th house is unconscious, right? It can be meditation, it can be hypnosis, it can be subconscious reprogramming, things like that. That's what 12th house signifies. Sigmund Freud had a strong 12th Lord and prominent 12th house, because I believe Ketu was there, or the South Node, just to give you an idea, right? And Aries there is going to have a person who will take a logical approach to their expenses, subconscious mind, transcendent spaces, however you define it. It could be the astral realm, could be the spirit realm, could be the subconscious realm or the collective unconscious, but we'll take a logical, let's say, action-oriented approach. And when it comes to spiritual development, because again, 12th house, most importantly, is about spiritual development and moving on to the next phase of life, the transitioning into the next cycle of manifestation, of existence, starting at 1 again. The approach is taking action and also protecting and fighting for what is right and following your vision. This is what will lead you to spiritual development, to raising your vibration, to actualizing and completing a cycle, standing up for what's right, being the warrior, taking action, facing the last hurdle head on, and not waiting, because, Aries is all about that action. Less thinking, more action. And you'll take a natural, logical approach because it's going to be instinctual. Because it's ruled by Mars, which is our instincts. It's that fight or flight mechanism. That's what Mars, the amygdala, is represented, ruled by Mars. Taurus takes very practical, thoughtful, slow and steady wins the race approach to losses, expenses, and transcendent states. It might be harder to tap in, more difficult to tap into higher states of consciousness. It might be more grounded. Depends on the person. For a Gemini rising, Taurus, 12th sign, 12th house. And when it comes to spiritual development, how does one spiritually develop? When you have the 12th house with Taurus, or, like I always almost forget to say at the beginning, if you have the 12th Lord in Taurus, Everything I said about Aries, if you also have the 12th Lord in Aries, also apply. It balances out between the 12th house sign and the 12th Lord sign. And same for all the other planets or all the other houses. So when it comes to spiritual evolution, spiritually developing, taking a practical approach, finding enjoyment through the material world, and also having a secure material based foundation to achieve spiritual development. Being able to be resourceful, to acquire the things that make you comfortable, physically satiated. Once you have that physical sensation or satiation, once you feel comfortable and your body is happy and your senses are titillated, pause, then you can move on to the next cycle of karma to continue developing as a spiritual being, enjoying human experience. Or at least I'm assuming that everyone who's watching my videos is human. We have Gemini in the 12th. When it comes to losses, expenses, and higher states of consciousness, the astral realm, the subconscious realm, collective unconscious realm, spirit realm, you will take more of a intellectual approach, maybe find it fascinating to test out different techniques or different approaches to accessing or maneuvering these parts of your life, trying different things and following what is interesting by exchanging ideas with other people as well, socializing, communicating, mediating. And when it comes to spiritual development, it's all about developing those skills, finding skills to tap into your subconscious mind, to access astral higher states of consciousness, to access the astral realm, astral projection, learning the techniques, learning the skills, and developing it consciously, and communicating and finding information from other people to develop this area of your life more effectively, more efficiently. You spiritually develop through your skills, through your intellect, and through learning the techniques. Cancer will take a intuitive approach, a more emotional, and then by emotional, I mean following what feels right when it comes to maneuvering, managing one's losses, expenses, or higher states of consciousness. Can have a relatively deep emotional realm due to the fact that Cancer is a water sign, ruling the emotions in the home, in the internal world, internal space. And when it comes to spiritually developing, it's all about caring for yourself and caring for others, having compassion, having more of that universal love, which Cancer represents when you have Jupiter there. You have that universal love, or Venus and Pisces as well. But water is more of that unconditional love. So being able to access more of an open, compassionate, selfless love to yourself and other people. Believe it or not, we can be selfish towards ourselves, meaning that we only deserve love. We only give love to ourselves once we jump through certain hoops. Cancer needs to be thoughtful of that, following the intuition, but also caring for oneself, self-care, caring for other people. Charity is powerful for spiritual development with Cancer in the 12th. Leo takes a more self-directed, consistent, stable approach because again, it's fixed sign, but likes to walk by the beat of its own drum as the king, Leo, when it comes to expenses, losses, and accessing higher states of consciousness. And when it comes to spiritually developing, raising one's vibration, transcending or achieving liberation and freedom, which is also what the 12th house represents. It's all about taking charge of one's life, leading one's life, being able to stand out in a crowd and take charge and be an authoritative figure who is honorable and noble and aligns their actions with their words and promises. Being a noble leader, king, in a spiritual sense. Virgo, which is what I have, is a Libra rising. When it comes to losses, expenses, higher states of consciousness, will take a very practical, analytical approach. So trying to explain things in a sequential way, in a way that the intellect can essentially comprehend it, taking it apart and putting it back together. And when it comes to spiritually actualizing, developing oneself, transcending or evolving to the next stage of one's spiritual development, Virgo, or the 12th Lord in Virgo, the 12th Lord or 12th house Virgo will do best to plan and manage their life and refine, constantly refining. Again, it's a sixth sign, Virgo. It's also about skill development, ruled by Mercury. So developing one's skills in a practical sense, but also being organized and managing and planning one's spiritual development. Having a coherent routine is very important for Virgos, or sixth house. It's also routine, but sixth sign can align with that signification as well. So for me, I have a spiritual routine that I do every single morning. I am consistent and I plan it out, and I've analyzed it, and I'm doing it, and I've realized why I'm doing it consciously. Like Cancer might just be like, oh, this feels right. This if I feel good after these activities, I feel lighter, I feel more free, I feel more aligned, so I'm going to do it. Aries is, I have this inspiration, I got this idea, I'm going to do this to develop spiritually, to move forward. Taurus is, I'm going to do this because it's going to give me more, let's say, material comforts, because once I have my material comforts, once I feel safe and my senses are titillated, or I can find spiritual actualization through the senses, believe it or not, you can do that. You can achieve transcendent states through sex, through delicious foods, or through comforts, right? Through connection. Gemini, through interesting, fascinating philosophies or information or facts, or communicating with intelligent people that are interesting and can provide the seeds of wisdom you need to continue developing as a spiritual being, usually one step at a time, a little bit more sequential. But Virgo is about being able to take an analytical approach, being able to understand it in a left brain fashion of why you're doing these activities to develop as a spiritual being. And I believe this understanding has served me well in teaching and sharing knowledge, because it makes sense as you communicate it, because certain information is difficult to convey through words and sometimes need to be experienced directly, because there's also many things I've experienced in a spiritual sense that I cannot adequately explain through this camera. And you'd have to experience it for yourself because you're on your own journey. Now we have Libra. When you have Libra, it's a Scorpio rising in the 12th, or the 12th Lord in Libra, taking a practical too, because Venus is practical approach to expenses, losses, or higher states of consciousness, but also taking a balanced approach, measured approach, weighing the pros and cons of each, let's say, approach to losses, expenses, and transcendent states of consciousness, and also socializing with people. And in a way, by that I mean listening to other people, exchanging ideas with other people, because it's an air sign, similar to Gemini. Gemini is more about, it's interesting, it's titillating, it's fascinating. That's why the communication's happening. It's also more variable, where Libra is all about the relationships that somebody has and spiritually developing through relationships. If we just seamlessly transition into the second part of this section, is achieving spiritual development through one's relationships, through harmonizing with other people, through finding energetic balance, and not falling victim to the extremes. It can be very easy to fall victim to the extremes because we're humans and we love to push things to the limit, but achieving that middle way is very important for spiritual development. And as you realize, as I go through all these signs, every sign has a universal truth, meaning you can achieve spiritual development, evolution, transcendence through any one of these 12 different modalities, or not modalities, but different thematic pathways. But you will have a easier time, a smoother time when you move in alignment with the sign that has the 12th Lord, or holding the 12th cusp, or is the 12th sign. Scorpio will take a calculated, let's say, passionate approach to expenses, losses, and transcendent states. Take it very seriously. Might have a prickly approach when it comes to losing things or letting things go. Surrendering. Might want to control, could have some difficulty there. I have a close family member who has 12th Lord or 12th house Scorpio, and they do not like losing control. The idea of psychedelics terrifies them. I've tried to convince them to try because I believe that it would be healing for them, especially from what they've been through, a lot of trauma, especially physical and violent. But alas, they have Scorpio in the 12th house, and so they find it difficult to let go, to give space, because it can be dark down there when you have Scorpio in the 12th house as a Sagittarius rising. But I do have a client who also has Scorpio in the 12th, and they meditate and they found profound benefits from it. As anyone can, this is advice for anybody. Meditation is good for anyone, no matter who you are. And when it comes to spiritual development, it's through facing one's darkness, facing one's demons, being able to do the hard work willfully, doing the painful shit, and exercising one's will. That's how you will spiritually develop, through the difficult stuff, because Scorpio represents all the hard shit, dealing with the trauma, dealing with the lack, and also not falling victim to our cravings, because Scorpio is a very craving sign, and that is the biggest block for Scorpio, especially in the 12th, is one's cravings and desires that are constantly being reinforced and reinforced and reinforced with the Sagittarius rising. Sagittarius, 12th house, or 12th lord in Sagittarius, will take a adventurous approach to losses, expenses, transcendent states, higher states, will want to learn about these states, alternative states of consciousness, or how to manage one's expenses, or how to let go properly, or to maneuver loss, because some people are atheists. It depends on who you are. And also acquiring knowledge about these things, these aspects of life, through a guru or a teacher or a guide. And how one can spiritually develop, spiritually evolve in this incarnation is also through learning, and through, more importantly though, sharing and teaching and guiding. It's how you can move, because you learn the best when you teach. This is why I enjoy making these videos, because not only do I get to share the information with you all, but I also learn myself better as I integrate and reinforce this information in my field. So learning, teaching, guiding, acquiring knowledge, going on adventures, going to faraway lands. These are ways that Sagittarius can develop oneself as a spiritual being. Capricorn can have a little bit more of an anxiety, but be very, again, practical, more hesitant, more restrained with the loss of expenses and achieving transcendent states, meaning that there will be a lot more intentionality usually with these people whenever they're trying to access either subconscious mind, astral realm, higher states, or when they have to manage achieving those states, or flirting with those states of consciousness, or in isolation. And to achieve spiritual development, to develop oneself as a spiritual being, taking the more traditional route, following a trusted authority, having a practical approach, and being persistent, being consistent, and doing the work. Because Capricorn is all about doing the work. You're going to have to get after it. It's not going to be all love and care and self-care and soothing like maybe a Taurus or a Cancer. It's going to be like, you got to do this work. Do the breath work. Do yoga. Do the meditations. Be practical. Be resilient. Put in the work. That's what Capricorn represents. Aquarius comes to losses, expenses, higher states. We'll take an intellectual approach. We'll intellectualize it. We'll perceive it in a more societal level, meaning they might want to find a community. They will, to manage their losses, expenses, or higher states of consciousness, or just their spiritual life in general. They want to find a spiritual community. They want to feel part of something bigger than oneself. They also may use an innovative approach or their own individualistic approach to how they manage the loss, the expenses, the higher states or alternative states of consciousness in their life. And when it comes to developing as a spiritual being, very simple. Work with psychological blocks that are holding you back, and progressing society, community, or humanity in some way, shape, or form. That is how you evolve spiritually. It's finding a group and finding ways to innovate and progress. Finally, we have Pisces. We have the 12th sign in the 12th house. How fun. Last one. You'd be an Aries rising if you had this, usually, unless you use different house systems. With Pisces, it's like on like. So they might have an escapist mentality because it's on the nose. Escapist mentality when it comes to losses, expenses, and higher states of consciousness, but also more able to go with the flow, more able to move with the punches, to adapt and use one's imagination to maneuver some of these more difficult aspects of one's existence. Also have the ability, when you have a water sign on the 12th, ability to go inside of oneself, to manage what's happening on the outside, or to manage one's isolations or feelings of solitude. 12th house also solitude, which is similar to isolation, but I would say that solitude is more conscious. So isolation is kind of more involuntary. You don't want to be isolated, but you are, like loneliness. Or solitude is more, oh, I'm consciously choosing to be alone, to contemplate, to look inside of myself, to reach alternative states of consciousness, to manage my losses, to manage my expenses, to manage my spiritual life. So they are able to align and get isolated, or let's say, go to solitude, become solitary to access those inner states. And when it comes to spiritual evolution development, letting go, surrender, using one's imagination, using one's third eye capabilities, looking inside of the self, and going with the flow. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, getting all the way to the end of the video. Would love to hear if this resonates at all, or opinions, positive or negative. I'm open to engage as long as you're not saying anything crazy. And we're going to start another series. We finished this series. If you haven't seen all the other videos, you can start from the beginning. We went through 1 all the way to 12 in this channel. And in the next series, we're going to be talking about the psychology of the houses, 1 through 12. We're going to go more of a psychological, introspective, maybe even a Jungian approach to astrology, which I always love to do, in the next series of videos. Thank you for your time. Cheers.